Welcome back to Fantasy Football Today. Got a fun slate of games coming up this afternoon. Cardinals at Panthers should be interesting there. Hopefully Kyler Murray runs a little bit more. Hopefully DJ Moore gets involved a little bit more for the Panthers. Should be a lot of fantasy production between those two teams. You got the Broncos and Raiders. Love the setup there for Russell Wilson. Hopefully the Raiders show up. Get Davante Adams the ball. That's my message to you, Derek Carr. And then we got the fun game there in the middle. The Patriots at the Packers. New quarterback for the Patriots and Mac Jones out. Aaron Rodgers trying to get the Packers back on track as they have the last 2 weeks. And the Packers heavy favorites there, 9.5 points is the spread in Lambeau Field. To break down that game now, it's our buddy Tom Spencer, CBS Sports editorial consultant. He's in the booth with Jim Nantz and Tony Romo, so he'll be at that game in Lambeau Field. And Tom, let's start with the big story for the New England side of things. So Mac Jones is out, dealing with that ankle injury. What are the expectations for Brian Hoyer to lead this Patriots offense?
Well, it's funny, Jamie, you were just mentioning Davante Adams there, and Bill Belichick brought his name up last night. They played here in 2014, and Bill said that was Davante's coming out party because we only gave him single coverage the entire game, and he had a big one, and that led to sort of the Davante Adams rush here of greatness the last few years. But getting back to your question, not surprisingly, Bill last night was very talkative and giving us a lot of great information, but the one subject he did not want to discuss was injuries. So no update really on Mac Jones and when he might come back. But as he phrased it to us with Brian Hoyer, who of course came to this franchise back in 2009, undrafted quarterback, his third stint with this team, 7th overall. It's an opportunity. And New England, quite simply, has turned the ball over way too much this year. They're -4 in the turnover ratio. An interesting statistic which shows how great this franchise has been. Maybe not surprising, but the last 16 consecutive years, they have been on the plus side of the turnover margin. So right now, they're facing a little bit of an uphill battle there. They've been poor on third down, poor in the red zone. If those two things can improve today, they feel like they have good skill position players, balanced offense, an outstanding run game, and I feel like New England has the confidence and an offense that if they get everyone healthy going into the second quarter of the season, so to speak, that this is a team that actually can start putting up some pretty decent offensive numbers. They've put the yards up. Now they just need more touchdowns and more scores. And a lot of people might be surprised what New England can do going forward.
I'm very surprised that Bill Belichick, of all people, did not want to talk about injuries. That's so unlike him to not give you any information like that. Speaking of injuries, they have another player who's out. Jacoby Myers not expected to go, dealing with that knee injury. So we saw Devontae Parker finally step up last week. Nelson Aguilar's had a good game already this season. We're waiting to see what happens with Kendrick Bourne, Hunter Henry. Any indication of which the skill players will maybe benefit from Brian Hoyer in the passing game?
Well, first of all, to kind of back up what we were just talking about, Jamie, New England, the last 2 weeks has had a 100-yard wide receiver, Aguilar at Pittsburgh, Parker last week. The last time they had a receiver with back-to-back 100-yard games was 2019. So that just shows you, the dearth of yardage from the wide receiver position that has gone away the last few years. Hoyer said, now granted, he's been around the league, 7 franchises in his career. He calls this the best collection of skill position players he has ever played with. Now he's had DeAndre Hopkins, for instance, as his wide receiver number 1 in the past, but he's talking about collectively when you factor in the 2 running backs, the 2 tight ends, and 4 legitimate wide receivers. So to answer your question, Myers, who's their leading receiver right now, will not play today. They seem to be playing that one cautiously. Hope to get him back soon. Kendrick Bourne is someone that Hoyer has known since his rookie year in San Francisco when Brian was out there. From what we understand, they were connecting this week at practice. Bourne's a guy that can get down the field. Now, he only has 5 catches this year, so are we expecting a 7, 8, 9 catch performance today? Maybe not, but I would expect him to be a target. Certainly Parker, coming off a big game last week. We know that he's an up and down receiver statistically, but a lot of upside there. So the point being, if you're playing against Aaron Rodgers, realistically, you want to keep the ball out of his hands. How do you do that? You run the football with your 2 outstanding running backs. And Belichick said at the start of the year, as you recall, that he wanted to get Ramondre Stevenson more involved in the pass game. And the Patriots kind of intimated last night that they still see that as a good possibility. Now, what does he have? Only 7 catches this year? Again, it's all about distribution, ball control, and keeping the ball away from Green Bay's offense. But I think that realistically, Brian Hoyer has a lot of options today.
So you touched on those running backs, and we've kind of tried to figure out who's the best one going forward. Like you said, Ramondre Stevenson showed a little bit in the passing game last week, started to play a little bit more the last couple weeks than Damien Harris. Is there any way that you can gauge who's the better running back today? Is it based on score? Harris may be better playing with the lead. Stevenson may be playing if they're chasing points. Which running back do you think has the better day?
Well, statistically, they're pretty much dead even. Both are averaging over 4.5 yards per carry. Start from that premise. Stevenson may be slightly better in the pass game. You know, he's coming off a good performance against Baltimore, as you recall, 12 carries, 73 yards, and a touchdown. The one thing that no one's talking about in New England, you remember, kind of a controversial first-round pick in Cole Strange, the left guard. And from what we've seen, he has played very, very well the first 3 weeks. Now you have Trent Brown, who's a gigantic left tackle just beside him. David Andrews, unbelievable center, you know, of course, working with Tom Brady all those years. New England has an underrated and maybe stout offensive line. So to me, either one of those guys, you know, Harris, of course, which is a pretty good statistical number. If you look at touchdowns scored since 2021 to now, it's Jonathan Taylor, number 1, and Harris, number 2. So I guess to answer your question about red zone touches, you would think that Harris is going to be the go-to guy. But to me, both of them can move the ball effectively for New England. And that's what I said earlier. They want to control the ball and keep it out of Aaron Rodgers' hands.
Yeah, it's a usually good game plan, try to keep Aaron Rodgers off the field. And it's funny that we spent all this time so far not talking about Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. But Rodgers got going a little bit last week, you know, a tough matchup against the Bucs, and he found some options in the passing game. Alan Lazard has a touchdown each of the last 2 weeks, but Romeo Doubs, their rookie wide receiver, stepped up. Is Rodgers starting to get a little bit more comfortable with his receiving core, and where do you think Rodgers is at right now heading into week 4?
I found it ironic that a year ago this weekend, Belichick faced Tom Brady. Remember that game back in New England?
Yep.
And then when Belichick turned on the film this week, he sees Tom Brady last week against the Packer defense. Aaron Rodgers, it's a work in progress. Dobbs is a guy they are very high on, first of all. You know, 8 catches last week. They want to get him more involved, running more routes in the game. Okay, you know, they want to expand his ability and gain Aaron's trust. Christian Watson, now, of course, we remember the first play of the season. It was a gamble to throw the deep ball because, as Matt LaFleur said, he didn't look like he expected to catch that football. But when they're comparing Christian Watson to other players in the past, the one name they brought up, which I was a little bit surprised, young version, of course, we're talking about here, Julio Jones. They're talking about his stride, his speed, his breakaway ability. So both rookies, to answer your question, they are very high on, but it's a work in progress to gain Aaron's trust. You've got Lazard, the veteran. You've got Cobb. Obviously no Sammy Watkins at the moment. If you're Belichick, though, who are you going to let beat you today, or who's going to try to beat you from Green Bay's perspective? Who are you going to try to stop? They're going to take away the running backs and probably Lazard. So can Aaron Rodgers make key throws in key situations to one or both of his rookie wide receivers? That'll be the fascinating chess match to me in this ball game.
100%, and certainly the running backs have mattered in the passing game, so we'll see how much they matter for Aaron Rodgers. And it was nice to see Robert Tonyan step up last week as well. 7 targets, 6 catches. So it should be a fun game, Tom. We appreciate your time as always. Looking forward to the call on CBS with Jim Nantz and Tony Romo, and we appreciate you being with us here on Fantasy Football Today. Make sure you're checking out Inside the NFL. Episodes drop every Tuesday on Paramount Plus. They have you ready to go to cover the league and give you all the inside information that you need. JB and the crew, they are the best. Make sure you check them out Tuesdays on Paramount Plus.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.